So I just want to say, thank you for coming in and, for letting us be in your home and doing this interview for us.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate it. So I'd like to start off. So you've experienced the 1950 flood and the 1953 flood as a child, correct?
Right.
Could you elaborate on some childhood memories that you had during that time?
I've been trying to think of what I could tell you. I would have been about 10 or 11 years old at that time, probably 11. And I do remember it vividly because our school was surrounded by water. There was no way for a school teacher to get to the school or home from school without going in a boat. And I remember other things about it too. Not as much as I wish I remembered because somehow it probably didn't affect me as much as my parents. But I jotted down some things that I do remember. Farmers, when there's a high water, they all are very alert to that, and they're really worried about whether there will be a flood or not. And are you familiar with the levees and how that operates? Well, I don't think it was any official organization, but the farmers would contact each other, and they all knew that they better be watching that levee, and so they would go over and walk that levee and watch and see how high the water was, and sometimes they would sandbag. Do you know what that is? Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was officially organized, but they worked together really hard to try to keep the flood from happening. And if it did, there were times when a little piece of the levee, some water would trickle through, and so they'd all rush and sandbag around that area. But in the year of 53, it apparently broke. I can't remember exactly where it happened, but when it broke, the word gets out pretty fast. And we weren't in any danger, but I'm sure there were some people whose homes had to be evacuated. They had to get livestock out of fields or whatever. So it affected a lot of people. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that I remember, and this probably, I don't know if it was the same flood or not, but I have a picture that shows my grandpa standing. It was Arthur Aiken, and he was standing in his front yard, and there was a boat at the edge of the yard, and the water was right up it was about halfway between the road and his house. So the flood really impacted them. And he had this huge snake that he held up, and I'm sure the waters had washed it up, and I think it was dead. But anyway, I have a vivid memory of that picture of my grandpa. And I do remember the boat ride, and I don't know if I can actually remember it as a child or if I just heard about it. But there was a time when our family got in a rowboat and went around and saw some of the floods by this little rowboat. The school teacher that I remembered so well, I wanted to tell you about her. Her name was Mrs. Creighton, and she was probably the loveliest teacher I ever had in grade school. She was tall and elegant and wore her hair in a bun, and just the most refined lady. And so when it was determined that they would have to close the school down or do something if the teachers couldn't get there. So my parents said to her, well, you can stay at our house. So she moved into our home for probably, it seems like it was at least 2 or 3 weeks. But that was a really big deal to me. That's my biggest memory of the flood, was having my school teacher come and stay with us. And she ate all of her meals with us. And I think she got the downstairs bedroom. I'm sure we probably gave her no privacy as a little kid. But after the flood was over, I think we almost hated to see her go back home to Vincennes.